I was like, that's not on that one. Did you read over the Animal Farm notes that I gave you?
Yes, very interesting.
Did you read over these? I see like one or two people. At least you're honest, right? Wow. Well, then you're not going to have any idea when I ask you how Trotsky and Stalin played into this book. You're not going to know how to answer that unless you know a lot about Trotsky and Stalin. Okay. All
I
right.
don't know anything about Trotsky, but a lot about Stalin.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll start with my character connectors. You said you were a character connector. Who did you do?
Snowball.
Okay, and tell me about Snowball. What's one characteristic that you felt like stood out to you the most?
Probably crafty.
Crafty. And how was he crafty? What example did you use for that?
All this while, no more had been seen of Snowball. He was rumored to be hiding on one of the neighboring farms.
Okay. What was Snowball's driving motivation? On the back of your paper.
It says to bring back old Major's thinking.
Okay. To bring back old Major's thinking. Okay. And was he static or dynamic?
Dynamic.
And how so?
Because he was on the animals, with the animals, and then he went over to the other farms and tried to get back what old Major was doing.
Okay. Okay. Do you think he changed, or did his situation change, or did he inherently change?
I think he changed with the situation.
You think, okay, so how so?
Because when old Major wasn't there anymore, then he wanted to, and the animals started doing their own way. He wanted to do it how they used to do it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and was he flat or round?
Round.
How so?
He was the main protagonist.
Who's the main protagonist? So what makes a character round?
She know a lot of details about him.
Okay, and so what details do you feel like you know about him that made him round in your opinion?
He talked about some of his looks a little bit.
Okay. More than his looks, what else do you know about him though?
Some characteristics.
Like what?
Like,
You're loving me right now, aren't you?
yeah. Intelligent, destructive, a traitor, deceitful.
Okay. Okay. Good. And who else was my character connector? Nobody?
Somebody's out.
Jordan was out. Let's see what Jordan had to say. He did Napoleon. He says Napoleon was cruel. Immediately the Danes bounded forward, seized favor of the pigs by the ear and what? Seized. That does not say favor. Y'all's handwriting, he is not the only one, by the way. Some of them I can't read. By the ear and dragged them, squealing with pain and terror. Okay, there we go. Oh, he says he's narcissistic. Who knows what narcissistic means? I know what narcissistic means. Nobody else knows what narcissistic means. What does narcissistic mean, James?
It means you're stuck on yourself.
You're stuck on yourself. You're like...
I think you're the greatest thing that ever happened to the world.
Well, self-centered. There you go. You know what self-centered means? Okay, narcissism is being self-centered. Okay, it's all about you. He says Napoleon approved of this about himself and caused it to be inscribed on the wall of the big barn at the opposite end of the seven commandments.
There was that poem written by the other pig.
Yes. Okay. He says he's round and dynamic. Napoleon is described in much detail throughout the book. His character also evolves from the beginning to the end. Okay.
I would disagree. I would say they just didn't know Napoleon was that evil until he became the leader, and then he had no one to stop him from showing how evil he was.
I might agree. Now, remember when you're talking about a character being dynamic, okay? Dynamic means that a character inherently changes from the beginning to the end of the book, okay? Here's the catch. There is a difference between someone being revealed and somebody actually changing, okay? You think about when we did Exodus, Abraham. Why did I just say Abraham? Moses, excuse me. Wow. Moses starts off, how would you describe him in the beginning?
He's very afraid of what other people will think of him in the beginning of the book.
He's timid, he has a lack of confidence, he cares too much about what other people think. Yes? All those
Yes.
things? Okay. Consequently, what does he wind up toward the end of the book, or even really by the middle? Somebody other than James. What would you use to describe him that? Sarah, you've been really quiet. I'll make you talk.
A follower of God. He's
Okay.
obedient.
What else? That's in contrast to the things I just said. Is he still timid at the middle of the book?
No, he's very open.
Okay. Is he, who does he care about what they think? People still?
God.
God. Do you see how he inherently changes? When you have somebody like,
I would say any killer in like a Sherlock Holmes book or a murder mystery or anything like that, they didn't change because they found out they were the killer at the end of the book. They were the killer the whole time. The fact that they were being nice was just uncovering it up.
that's a great example. If you have a mystery and you have the bad guy in it, okay, whether that's a thief or a murder or whatever, okay, would the book be as good if you knew exactly who it was and their characteristics from the beginning of the book? No. The goal typically of writers is to conceal the true identity of that person, which means the true characteristics. Think about the story of Snow White. Okay? You've got this stepmother who turns herself into... Y'all know the story of Snow White? Okay. You've got the stepmother who dresses up, turns herself into an ugly old hag with an apple. Well, she just seems like a pitiful old woman, right? That's not her true characteristics. Her true characteristics are revealed, they're like uncovered, but she didn't really change at all. Okay? I'm trying to think of a children's story, because those are the easier ones to... Why is my brain? Who is a bad guy in a children's story that seems good to begin with?
That movie Frozen. I mean, I don't know if I've seen it.
Oh, there you go. Have y'all seen Frozen?
I
Okay,
wish
my
I-
boys in here,
I
the four of
did-
y'all, have you seen Frozen? Have you seen Frozen?
Didn't want to.
We'll just pretend we did.
Have you all seen Frozen?
We'll just
Hans was his name, right?
Yeah.
Was it Hans?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just all pretend we didn't get dragged into it, like.
Okay. Here's the thing. You don't even have sisters, so how in the world
No,
did you
I have these cousins, and so I ended up watching small parts. I've seen enough parts to know how it goes.
Okay, so Hans, in the beginning of the movie, in the middle of the movie, he seems authentic, he seems kind, he seems fun, he seems kind of laid back, all these things, yes?
I thought that was the most tacked on, dumb, bad guy fight ever, because I thought it was just dumb. He had literally no motivation to be villain.
A bad guy. But then we find out he's bad. Now, did he change from being good to bad? No. He was revealed as bad. So you've got to make sure that when you're talking about a character being dynamic, that they're not just being revealed.
Yeah.
That they truly do have, I would even say maybe a heart change or a character change that really is in stark contrast to how they were to begin with. Okay? Physical features do not count. If somebody goes from being thin to fat, or fat to thin, or short to tall, all those things, those don't count. Okay? Makes sense? Okay. Let's see. You were figurative figure? Yes? Okay. Give me an example that you found.
Hyperbole, Squirrel was so fat that he could, with difficulty, see out of his eyes.
Very good. Very good. Okay. You got another one that's not hyperbole?
I had kind of trouble on that one, because I didn't know if it quite was, because the gross exaggeration, wouldn't that mean that somebody was giving him the characteristics, not necessarily him having them?
No, not necessarily. That also can be metaphor too, though,
Okay.
what you listed. So hyperbole is just a gross exaggeration. It could be she was so fat she couldn't fit through the door.
It was really easy to find in this book.
Personification.
Yes.
Yes, personification is everywhere. I should have, for you all, when you did that one, told you you could use personification, but that's okay. I didn't. Did you use personification?
Yeah, I just put hyperbole because that's...
Well, that's one. What else did you get?
Oh, I used an idiom. It's an idiom.
An idiom?
Yeah, he had demanded payment in a real £5 notes.
Okay,
I think that was a payment of money and I didn't know what it was. And maybe they knew what it was.
£5
a pound note is a form of money
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
England.
In
Yeah,
England,
so-
in England, a pound is like $1.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
that's okay. It's not idiom, but I see how you didn't know what it was.
It's like saying $5 in England.
Yeah.
But the note didn't make any sense to me.
That's what they call like a bill. Instead of like when you would say you gave me a $5 bill, they call it a note.
They call it five. They would say that I gave you a £5 note.
Right.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. James, what did you say you had? Annotator?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check yours later. Sarah, you had annotator? Okay, Jonathan, you're up. Give me your best question.
Why does Napoleon order the animals to stop singing Beasts of England?
Why does he order them to stop singing the Beasts of England? What do you think?
Because now that he's in power, he doesn't want any revolutionary thought.
Okay, that's a good answer. That works. He doesn't want, he has it all now, right?
Yeah, he is the new owner, and now he doesn't want another rebellion, so he gets rid of everything he thinks that could start another one.
Okay, anybody else? What was your answer, Jonathan?
Kind of similar to James. I was just, he changed the song into one of himself because he wanted people, the rest of the farmhouse, to start focusing on him instead of the one to where it caused a rebellion. Didn't want another one to happen to where he would be with them.
Very good, very good. I want us to compare for just a second Snowball and Napoleon. I want characteristics that are similar and characteristics that are different for a second. So think about them for a second. If you need to look at your book, you can. But I want you to compare Napoleon and Snowball. Compare and contrast. What are some things they have in common? And you can't say they're both pigs. Is that what you're about to say?
Yes.
You can't say they're both pigs. They both have snouts.
They don't really have much in common in the book, I don't think.
You don't think so?
Nope, because Napoleon doesn't really care for revolution, and Snowball is all about it. And Napoleon is purposefully disagreeable to everybody. That's what I think almost his main characteristic is the fact that he's disagreeable to everybody.
I have teenagers like that live in my house. Disagreeable to everybody. I'm sure nobody else has that. And y'all would never be like that, would you? So nobody can think of any characteristics that they have in common other than the fact they're pigs.
I would think that they will both want some kind of sort of power.
Does human nature want power?
Yes. Well, I think the author tries to portray Snowball as because he was a socialist, what his ideal of socialism is.
Yes, because if you remember, Orwell
Is a socialist.
is a socialist.
And he's trying to portray Snowball as what the ideal socialist leader would be, as opposed to Napoleon, who he said will end up being the socialist leader, because he'll chase out the one that should be the leader, and
Okay.
and then the people will be too afraid to do anything about it.
Okay, let's think of this. Let's use this as an example. Okay, we said wants to be in control, has a desire to be in power. We'll say that, use that way. Okay, does God want to be in power? Does God has a desire, is it part of his character, to be in power?
Yes, it is part of it. It's part
Yes.
of his character to be in power. But
It
not-
is. Hang on though. Hold with me for a second. Does Satan want to be in power?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the difference?
God is in power and Satan is not in power.
Yeah, hang on though. What else? What other differences? Well, if you just use God and Satan as your,
Everything
hold
else.
on. I want somebody else to answer. Now, what is the driving motivation to want to be in power? Yeah.
Satan is jealous of God and he wants what God already has.
Okay. So jealousy, maybe one. So why does God want to be in power? Anybody other than James at the moment? Poor James. I'm so sorry, James. Yep.
God made us to love him and he wants the power over us.
Okay. Yeah. He's perfect. Yes. He loves us and he wants to be glorified. Yes. But he does not want to be glorified narcissistically. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's kind of like when somebody says you need to fear the Lord. Okay? There's a line there, right? We can even translate that down into people who fear their parents. Okay? There's fear and there's fear. Yes? Okay? So you have to look at the driving motivation, and the reason I use that example is you have to go back to Napoleon and Snowball. Both, I think, at some point in the story, desired power. But what was the driving motivation behind it? That's where...
I think Snowball is portrayed as wanting to help the animals, and Napoleon just wants an easier life for himself, basically. He wants... I feel like Napoleon wants luxury, is kind of the thing he's portrayed as. His desire is for luxury, because everything he does, he tries to do more and more luxurious things as time goes on and get away with it.
And Snowball wanted power because of why?
Because he wanted to help the animals. Or at least you don't get to stay with him long enough to find out he didn't.
That's true. That's true. How do you think the story might have been different? Let's back up and pretend that Snowball did not get driven off the farm by the dogs. Let's say the dogs didn't even exist in the story. Okay, just take that out, and let's say that Snowball and Napoleon continued to reside on the farm together. How do you think that things might have been different? Not James. Hang on. I know you hate me doing that, but everybody else in the room hates me doing it too, because when I make you be quiet, that means they have to talk. I'll stand here all day, Randy. How would things have been different if Snowball had not been driven off the farm? everything would have been exactly the same? Let's shift the question for a second. What if Napoleon had been driven off the farm and left Snowball completely in charge? How would things have been different? I'm not gonna let you rescue them. Okay, each of the four of you have to tell me one thing that would have been different. What's one thing that would have been different if Snowball had been in charge and Napoleon had been the one driven off the farm?
They might go back to stuff that they used to do,
Like what?
like work for people.
Okay, so you think that the humans would have come back and taken back over? Okay. There, like that. Got started. Think about specific things that happened after he left. Maybe that would help you. What about the windmill? Try. Come on, y'all. We got something. Did you read the book? James says he didn't read the book. He should have. Okay, I'll throw out another question. James still can't answer though. Okay. Napoleon hid the fact that his animals were starving. Yes? Okay. Why would a leader hide something like that? Why did he hide that?
He didn't want to see that things were starting to crumble on the way.
Why?
He wanted to show that they were still all powerful in that sense.
Okay.
They still had a matter of control.
Okay. So what would have happened? What could have happened?
They would all starve and die. They could have died.
Yeah. Yep.
You want that outside appearance of the farm to look good?
Want the outside to look good. Because here's the thing. People, you start realizing people are starving. Have real leaders done things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like in history?
Mhm.
Yeah. And what was the reason?
Well, they didn't want people to invade because because if you have enemies, they sense weakness.
They do see. And also, if your family is starving, do you go to a different place as far as internally in your mind and your heart thinking what you might do? Do you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
Well,
It
you
becomes-
don't necessarily have the loyalty of the people in an invasion either. If the people know they're starving and someone else comes to try to take advantage of that fact.
Right. Okay. What's another one of the questions, Jonathan, you have? Maybe your questions are better than mine, because mine apparently stumped people.
What does the windmill represent? Kind of like what's its symbolic representation?
Oh, that's a good one. What does it represent? Sarah, what do you think it represents? You forgot.
I don't know, probably like power, because they built it for so long and they kept rebuilding because they wanted others to know that they're still in power and they're like still in control of that general area.
Okay, so it's a symbol of power and control. Okay, Jonathan, what did you say?
At first it was just a production, but later the humans started seeing it as a danger symbol that the pigs were growing in power.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, talk to me about Boxer. Boxer is an important, I would say an important secondary character. Okay? What role did he really play in the progression of this whole thing? I mean, how did he and his character, how did it impact what was going on in the rest of the story?
I think a lot of farm animals signaled him in one way because he had a strongness about a great motivation to keep everything in line.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I would say that Boxer was kind of like, was supposed to be representative of all the people who people trusted in more than the leaders, but were fooled by the leader. I think it's supposed to be, he was fooled by a bad leader, but everyone trusted him to make the right decision, even though they really shouldn't have. Because his work was so good, they just assumed he would be smart in his decision making too, basically. Because all the animals, they weren't sure about Napoleon ruling them at first, but then Boxer kind of convinces them all to go with it.
True. Well, what was the statement he said? Was it Napoleon's always right?
Yes.
You know, verbally, him affirming, because think about what would happen if Boxer had turned against Napoleon.
Well, we were talking about role models before. He's kind of the whole farm's role model.
That's true. And there's this deception. You think about a room and a situation to where, I hate to use terrible examples, but you're in a classroom or something like that, not a co-op, and there is something dangerous that happens. Okay? You are going to look to who you perceive as the most powerful person in the room. Does physical stature play a part in that?
Yes, but also mental ability.
If the smartest person in the room is 4'8" and 85 pounds, do you look to them if there's physical danger situation, or do you look to the 6'5", 250-pound man?
You look to the man, usually.
I mean, seriously.
Unless you have reason to look to someone else.
I mean, because there's something in our minds that says that physical stature matters, trumps things. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? I mean, and to explain why, I don't even know that I can even fully explain why, but the physical stature of Boxer, they're like, if he's doing it, then we should do it. When you think about a book that is written like this, I mean, there are lots of books, there are lots of articles, especially with the internet nowadays, that attack or expose, maybe a better word, things that are wrong in government. Okay? How does literature really impact society when you have something going wrong? Does it really impact society? Does it really make a difference? Do things really change based on literature?
That's why all these countries ban, like China banned literature. Like you can't, they restrict their internet access to a lot of the internet sites, like YouTube. Everything by Google is restricted in China. That kind of stuff.
So, somebody other than James, how does that literature, how does it impact? So that's one man's opinion. This is one man's opinion. That's it.
Could you ask that question one more time?
Yep. How does literature really impact, we'll even go a little more broad to make it easier. How does literature impact society? That might be a better way to state it. Or does it impact society? Can it change things? Yep.
Insert people's opinions.
How?
Like if you don't like a certain political leader, then you have a good reputation for writing and knowing stuff about politics. And maybe you wrote a good book and everybody starts following you. Maybe in the next election, that government won't be back. The political leader won't be back.
Okay.
And that can change how everything works.
Okay. If this is one man's opinion, okay, I'll give you an example. Did anybody watch the news yesterday? Does anybody watch TV at all or read the newspaper?
I try to
yesterday?
avoid all that as much as
Okay,
possible.
there was something that I would say impacted a situation yesterday. Okay, UT's looking for a new football coach, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yesterday morning, it came out that they were in talks in final negotiations, and that's the key thing, final negotiations with this assistant coach from this other thing. It went berserk. Twitter blew up, the news blew up, all this. Apparently, I don't know anything about this coach at all, but apparently he was involved in cover-up of another coach who was,
He was part of the Jerry Sandusky scandal.
yes, whoever that is. Yes,
Right.
okay. And he also has a terrible winning record. Okay, I mean, his record was awful. Again, let me say, they were in final talks, negotiations with the contract. By last night, it fell apart. It started with one person's opinion. One person's opinion. Okay? But then, what happens is I may have opinion, but I'm not really strong in it, and I certainly don't feel strongly enough to write a book about it. But then I read this, and I realize it's worse than what we thought. I'll give you another example. My other class is reading Uncle Tom's Cabin. Have any of y'all ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin?
I did not know that Abraham Lincoln said when he met the author, so this is the lady who started a civil war.
Yes. Okay. The author of Uncle Tom's Cabin wrote this book to expose what was going on in the South in slavery, because the people in the North they kind of turned a blind eye. Do you know what that means? What does it mean to turn, not James, you can't answer. What does it mean to turn a blind eye to something?
It's like you notice it, but you don't do anything about it.
Kind of, yeah. You know something's wrong, but it's kind of like if I don't look out that window, if I see two students that are fighting out there, okay, and I just don't want to deal with it. Well, as long as I stand right here and I move over here and then I'm looking at you face, do I have to be held accountable for what's going on out there? I say, I don't know. I didn't know that was going on. I didn't know what was happening. And so you have books like Animal Farm, you have books like Uncle Tom's Cabin, but what happens is somebody says, listen, y'all got to pay attention to what's going on in the world. You've got to pay attention to what is happening in Russia. Because, was Russia a powerful nation?
Yes.
Yes. So when you have things going poorly in a powerful nation, then it is going to have a global impact. When you have the United States of America and the treatment of Africans, because they were Africans at the time, they weren't African Americans necessarily, the treatment of black people was so terrible and so oppressive, okay, that impacts the whole country, yes? But the North was standing going, nothing's going on here. Everything's fine here. There's nobody being burned to death.
Well, back then it was a lot harder to feel connected to places 400 miles away, because you didn't travel 400 miles in your entire life back then.
Correct. So now there's pros and cons about written word. You think about Facebook, you think about Twitter, you think about online news, you think about all this stuff. The positive, the thing, it still impacts because we still all see it, yes? Why might it not be as impactful now as the news was even 30 years ago?
Because people have realized that bad opinions exist. People accuse everything that they disagree with of being fake, and so you have to go back and check every opinion if you want to convince people. You have to have so many things to back up your opinion, because people really just accuse the other side of being not real now.
Well, you're inundated with opinions, you're inundated with thoughts.
Yeah, so you don't take them as seriously.
You don't.
Because you're like, well, this is just someone else's opinion.
I mean, here's the thing. You know, when Richard Nixon, when all that happened with the Watergate scandal, okay, it was big news and everybody knew about it. And he was a fairly popular president before that. He had just been reelected. Okay, so there was this whole idea of him being a good president. So when something came out bad about him, what did everybody do? They went, wait a minute, they took notice quickly. How many things do you think you've heard negative about the President of the United States in the past 2 weeks? Probably couldn't count.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much attention do you then put toward it?
They accused him of being the new Watergate at least 20 times during his presidency.
Okay, so the thing is that it almost, just because of the flood of information, how much information is out there, you don't pay as much attention to it because there's so much of it. You can't process all of it.
And it's come to light more recently that so much of it is so opinionated that people started realizing that.
Well, and there is fake news. I mean, was there fake news 50 years ago?
Yes,
yeah.
it was called yellow journalism back then.
But it wasn't as plentiful as it is now. It's kind of like the reason I say that Wikipedia is not something that you all can use as a credible source is because you can get on there and change that. Some people look at Wikipedia as a factual source. Are there facts on there?
Yes. And there's other people who look at Wikipedia as a way to play pranks on unsuspecting people.
So, okay, so what we're going to do, next week you start the book, I Am Malala. Okay? I'm saying that wrong. Malala. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. You're supposed to start that book. Let me go ahead and give you your lit jobs assignments for that. Okay, then you're going to be the discussion director. James and Josh, you're annotator.
I was annotator last
Oh,
time.
you were?
Oh.
Oh, hold on then. You're annotator. This is your character connector. If I name what you were last week, tell me. Hannah was. Okay, let's have her do annotator next week. Have you done, when was the last, okay, it's just gonna be easier. Sarah, you did annotator this week. What did you do last week?
I think the character connector.
Okay, so you're doing discussion director then, this week. Okay, so that, Josh, what have you been? What you were
I
this week?
did the character collector.
And what did you do last week?
Oh, last week I did character collector initially. You just said annotator.
So you did annotator and then character connector? I'm confused.
Oh, for the first part? For the
First
first
part.
6 chapters?
Yes.
I think it's figurative figure.
Okay, so you're gonna do annotator then this week,
Okay.
okay? Did I already say that you were doing annotator and I'm repeating myself? Okay, so who, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 2 more. Jordan, I don't know what Jordan was character connector, so I guess I'll have him do discussion director. And have you been character connector?
I have not. I did figure and I did discussion director.
Okay, so you, Jonathan, or Gary, your neighbor? Okay. What I want to spend the last about 10 minutes on is if you have specific questions concerning your research paper, I'm going to try to answer some of those. Yes.
Well, first I would say that for 12:05 until 12:10, we have colonoscopy. So I think so if you could explain so I can get some of it done, that would be nice.
Okay, we need to check that. Do you have a study hall all today?
From now until,
Okay, well, that's what I'm teaching. Okay, so maybe, when comes your last class over? 4?
this is my last class.
Oh, do you leave at lunch?
I leave at lunch sometimes and I leave now sometimes when I go out.
Okay, we need to talk on the phone then. Can you call me tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Nobody has any questions? Oh, I need to check who are my annotators again? Okay, yeah, I need annotating papers.